And welcome back to the Financially Simple Experience. So friends, I want to have a pretty candid and serious conversation with you today. I want to talk about a race to the bottom. A race to the bottom. I typically see this race transpire whenever we go through tough economic times like we're dealing with now. Whenever I'm dealing with a novice business owner, somebody who's just new to business, maybe they came out of a business school and they have the academic training, but they don't have the real life training, they make this mistake. So I want to deal with this race to the bottom. So let's set the stage, and I want to set the stage in my typical fashion using something totally off the wall, and that is a movie that I watched in the 80s. So I'm a child of the 70s. I lived through the 80s, the hairband days, and all the craziness that happened there. But I remember this particular movie, which was a little weird. It's still kind of fun to watch. But the name of the movie was Teen Wolf. Teen Wolf, starring Michael J. Fox. So in this movie, Teen Wolf, the story narrative is this a young high school boy who is becoming a werewolf, and he wasn't aware of it. Now, I don't want to get into the dynamics of a werewolf or high school kids, but what I do want to address to kind of set the stage for today's conversation is a statement that the dad who owned a hardware store, who was a small business owner, would often make. He made this statement several times in the movie, and the statement was, "I'm not Sears and Roebuck. I'm not Sears and Roebuck." He would say it in an affirmative manner, "I'm not Sears and Roebuck." And he would say it in jest, "I'm not Sears and Roebuck." Now, for those of you who don't know what Sears and Roebuck is, it's currently known as Sears. Come See the Softer Side of Sears was a commercial that happened in the early 2000s talking about everything outside of tools, but it's a hardware store. It's been around for many, 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 many decades. It used to be called Sears and Roebuck. The point that the dad was trying to illustrate is look, I cannot compete with their prices. Their prices are cheap. I can't compete with them. I'm going to do something different. You see, as business owners, we're fiercely competitive. We want to win. We want to win. We want to win at all cost. Some of us even say that, I'm going to win this battle. And we have to be tenacious. We have to be bullheaded because of all the things that are come at us as business owners. And friends, in the world that we're dealing with right now, sometimes winning can be dangerous. Sometimes if we're not careful in our emotion and our desire to win, we could be literally participating in a race to the bottom. I want to answer the question today that was raised. And the question is, why should small business owners avoid price wars with competitors? So let's define our terms before we get started. What is a price war? According to Investopedia, and I'm going to quote this, a competitive exchange among rival companies who, and here's the key, who lower the price point of their products in a strategic attempt to undercut one another and gain greater market share. Okay, plain English. We're going to lower our price on our service or our product so that we can get more people to come to us because we offer the same product for cheaper. That's a price war. So then as we think about that, we have to ask the question, well, if we engage in a price war, if we make this move to try to get more customers, is it sustainable? Now, look, it may sound on the surface like it's a good idea for us to go out and drop our prices so that we can get more market share. But the danger is it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. Why? Man, there's several reasons. One of the first things is that it drives into your current profit margins. So think about this. Let's say you're used to charging $1,000 for your particular service or widget, and you reduce it by 25% down to $750. It sounds like a deal. Maybe the competitors are still at $1,000, but now you're 25% lower than they are. Did you also reduce your cost of goods, your SG&A, your expenses of the company by 25%? More than likely not. Because as business owners who are already mature, who are in our businesses and we're ingrained in our communities or in our processes, it's very difficult for us to reduce SG&A or COGS by 25%. And so inevitably what happens is our profit margins are attacked. We end up devastating our profit margins. And long term, we can't do that else we go out of business. So it's unsustainable because of attack on profit margins. It's also unsustainable because of the reduction in our quality control. Our product and service quality will end up declining. I take you back to the 1990s. During that period of time, there was a price war from the airplane industry, the transportation industry. Delta, American Airlines, Southwest, and many others were going into the position of we're going to get the lowest possible fares, flight cost, in order to get more passengers through quantity, and thus we'll win. During this time period, American Airlines lost, listen to this, a record $1 billion, with a B, $1 billion. Now, this is the 1990s. This is before Amazon trillion-dollar companies came about, right? This is in the business world a long time ago. They lost $1 billion despite boarding 21 million passengers. They had more flyers, more frequent flyers, more locations, and they lost a record number of money. So when we look at it as a sustainable strategy, it doesn't make sense. Okay, so let's look at some additional ramifications. Now look, I will concede this fact that in the short term, in a very short term eclipse time frame, a price war may make sense. However, there are some long-term ramifications. The average company in the United States, if it took a 1% drop in their price on the product and service, it could cut the operating profits by 15%. Think about that. A 1% drop in prices could end up cutting your operating profits. There are certain parts of the country where fewer job opportunities occur because of price wars. So what happens is the workers who we were able to afford at one level, you drop the prices down, and now people end up going out of business, and the workers now are having to migrate to other locations in order to gain employment for their needs. Think about this. If you engage in a price war and you lose. My goodness. You lose market share and you lose profits. So whenever there's a competitor out there who's taking a race to the bottom at a very low cost, you're going to lose market share if you participate and you lose in the price war, but you're also going to hurt yourself in profits. And candidly speaking, it can lead to higher prices in the long run. Well, that doesn't make any sense, Justin. If we're cutting costs, how does it lead to higher prices? You eliminate your competition. Friends, competition within our industries is what allows us to constantly do R&D, research and development. It creates initiatives. It creates an iron sharpening iron effect. And so by eliminating our competition, what could happen is our cost of goods could increase. Well, Justin, that doesn't make sense. Okay, let's say that we end up looking at a company who's making some sort of a rubber product. Maybe it's a basketball or football or something that's rubber. And all of a sudden, this company totally eliminates all their competition. Unless they're willing now to buy and purchase a rubber plant, the rubber company, their sheer provider, is now looking at this big behemoth of a company, and they now start raising their prices. Whereas if they had multiple competitors there, then they would have to stay more fluid in their price point. We've seen this happen, friends, in many, many, many different sectors around the economy and around the world. So now that you understand there are some dangers to price wars, and there is some validity to a price war, how should we respond as business owners, especially in this particular economic environment, whenever we see a price war or it's coming against us? First thing I'm going to tell you to do is assess your competitors' motives. Why? Why are they dropping their prices? There could be a number of reasons. Your competitors could have overly purchased a particular product, and because of that over purchasing of the product, they now need to liquidate their inventory. We've seen this as of late, even with the COVID effect. I mentioned this a few weeks ago on the podcast that There was a news article in the last 2, 3, 4 months now where Walmart and Target and some of the other big box stores, because of COVID, ordered certain supplies, and those certain supplies got held up in quarantine and shipping and transit, etc., over a longer than expected period of time. And so when the supplies came in, the demand wasn't quite the same for those series of supplies. I'm thinking about toilet paper. I mean, during the COVID crisis, trying to get your hands on some TP was just amazing at that point. And so I could see someone like a big box store like Walmart or Target or any others ordering an abundance of toilet paper, expecting it to be here through just-in-time delivery within a week, but yet now a month, 2, 3, 4, a year has gone by, and they put in this huge order to meet the demand, which has now subsided. And so we could see a price war in my example of toilet paper, where the company is now trying to liquidate and get that inventory off their shelves. The reason for the price war may have nothing to do with you or with your company. It could be something where the other competitor just mismanaged something. The lower price could reflect a change in a supply cost. Maybe your competitor was able to negotiate a lower price point through their cost of goods. Well, if that's the case, then you're now faced to go out and match it or go in a different direction. There's a number of things. It could be for a promotional reason, for a loyalty reason. They could do a number of things for cutting their price. We've got to assess why. Why is our competitor drastically reducing their prices on this product or this service? So the first thing we do is assess. The second thing we do is we've got to get creative and create a differentiation between us and our competition. Okay, so they are lowering their prices over here. Does that mean we need to act in kind? What if it's the same product, but we market it differently? I'll give you 2 examples. Whenever you go to the airport, I was in the airport, Chicago, I think this last week, a bottle of water is $4 plus. Whenever I go to the football game in small town Tennessee last week, the same exact maker of this bottle of water was 50 cents. What's the difference? Why can the airport charge 4 plus, but hometown Tennessee's at 50 cents? There is a differentiation there. It's a supply demand. There was a differentiation in the marketing, the location, the service, the customer, etc. So we can differentiate between a number of factors. I'm reminded of a story that I've used on the podcast in times past, but it talks about this company, big box company, that moved into a retail strip center, and they put these little wavy guys. You all seen them. They put a fan underneath this long, 20, 30 foot round make-believe dancing guy. And it's out front. It's standing in front of this hairdressers, or this big popular named hair cutting salon. And underneath the name of the salon, it has this big sign in bright yellow with black letters on it that says, "We do $5 haircuts." Now, everyone knows in the town that right across the street from this new salon that's doing $5 haircuts with all their glitter and glamour of these dancing people up in the front, there's the hometown barber who you can go there and get a really good haircut for $25. I'm reminded of the story when I first heard this. The hometown guy, instead of lowering his price from $25 down to $5 because of all the things we've aforementioned, he just simply changed the narrative. He created a differentiation. He put a sign out front, didn't have to have the dancing gizmos out front, just put a simple sign that says, "We fix $5 haircuts." Instant mic drop differentiation. So friends, whenever you see yourself engaging in a price war, you don't necessarily have to respond in kind. If you can create a differentiation, just like my examples here, then you can not participate and keep your margins. I'm interested in the story of Apple. Apple has come onto the scene in the last 20 years in a way that none of us would have expected. One of the things that's interesting about Apple is their product, the phone, the tablet, the computer, various other things, is nothing new. Other manufacturers make the same thing. However, only Apple can run on their proprietary operating system. So when you combine everything together, it brings up to the fact that the strategy of differentiation that Apple now deployed is set the company in 2022 where they're going to assemble, get this, 220 million devices, iPhones. It's at the very time whenever Android devices are suffering, all through differentiation. So let's say you find yourself in a price war and you now you understand what your competitor's motive is, and now you can create differentiation. Another thing you can do to not participate is you could develop strategic partnerships. In my early days in the landscape company, I found myself competing against the big boys. Now, the big boys had multiple crews, had nurseries that they owned. They'd been in business for a while, and they had built up a very good business. But me as trying to start a business from scratch and trying to compete in that marketplace, I couldn't compete with them. So what I had to do was I had to develop strategic partnership with nurseries where I would commit to a certain number of orders of a particular plant or a particular supply, and they would bring their price point down for me that allowed me to win more business. An example of this is Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is unbelievable at creating a great customer experience over low pricing. They've hired people to come in and do training to create just a different movement. They've worked with Grubhub. They work with a number of other companies in order just to create a little bit different partnership. In 2019, because of their partnerships, Chick-fil-A earned $11.3 billion, and they outpaced their rivals like Taco Bell and Burger King and Wendy's, despite operating at half the locations and being closed on Sundays, all because they went with a different partnership strategy. So friends, if you find yourself in a price war, man, there's a ton of things you can do. A ton of things you can do. I'm going to give you one more and then we'll call this one a wrap. You can provide education to the quality and your known value. You can provide education to your quality. And this is where my statement, the race to the bottom, has to stop. In the early days of my career, I began helping business owners buy businesses and start businesses from scratch. Now, these were business owners who had advanced degrees, but not in business. And what they would do is they'd buy the business, they would get in the business, they realized, my goodness, it's hard being a business owner. So what would they want to do? Well, we're going to cut our price. We're going to provide this service at 75% the value of everybody else in town. What I was quickly able to teach them, and those who listened and didn't listen to the ignorance of the novice, those who listened, man, they're so much far better off today. What we were able to teach them is, look, let's prioritize the quality and let's prioritize your known value. I can remember one particular dentist. I helped him buy his practice in another state. It wasn't in Tennessee. He bought the practice, and the previous doctor was doing hygiene care or cleaning teeth for roughly about, at the time, $75 a treatment. And he wanted to do it for $10 a treatment, just enough they had to pay a little bit of money. And instead I said, well, I hear you, but you're not going to be able to stay in business long if we go that route. What if we do this? What if we, instead of charging $75, we charge $100? And he just looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, what if instead of charging $75, and you're in a business, you're in an environment where most of your competitors at this point, most of the other dentists are within about 3 to 5 years of retiring. They've been practicing a long time. What if we magnify the fact that you have these advanced training, you just graduated and you have technology in your office that allows for better care? We actually prioritize the quality and your particular knowledge and training, and we charge a premium for it. Now, in this case, the dentist listened. We just changed the terms. And before you know it, he had a very full schedule because it was exactly what that particular community was looking for. They were looking for some young superstar who had been trained in other methods and other technologies to come in and provide a different level of care. So friends, we're at a time in our careers right now, we're at a time in the economy right now where pricing is major, where we may be engaged or find ourselves engaged in a war on price. I've given you 5 different points here that you might consider to try to avoid price wars. Don't race to the bottom. Don't race to the bottom on your prices. Hold your prices firm. If you need to change anything, look at expense cutting. If you need to change anything, pour more money into marketing. Market more. Change the tune of your market. But friends, I implore you, if you want to be a successful business owner who's driving value in the company, you cannot compete on price. You cannot. Friends, I hope that helps you today. Been getting that question a lot. Look, I realize we're dealing with tough times right now. We are. We're dealing with unprecedented times because of right to the back of COVID, and now we have high inflation rates, and many of our customers, business owners, et cetera, haven't ever experienced what we're dealing with right now. If there's one thing you can take away from today, please don't engage in a price war. Until next time, friends, y'all make it a great day.